Alright, so this video I'm going to show how to change strings on a bass. This is actually an 8-string bass, but I'm just going to show you the bass string, so it's going to work like any bass. I took all the strings off just because I wanted to clean the fretboard. It needed it. Every once in a while I'll do that. Normally just change one string at a time. It's less stress on the neck of the tension going off and on. So you get your string. I'm going to start with the low E string. That's what I'll show for this video. On this bridge of this bass, I have two options of how to string it. I can go through the back. It's hard to see, but there's holes that go straight through here in this area where my thumb is. Or it can go through the body, through the back. Generally through the body, they say it has more sustain. I'm actually, to demonstrate a trick, I'm going to go through the bridge for this E string. This is a trick I found online actually on YouTube, and it's normally for a low string like on a 5-string bass, your B string. But I'm going to try it with the E as well to see if it works. This is the first time I tried it because usually I go through the body, which I think I'll do on the other strings, but this one I will go through the bridge. So bring your string through, flip this around. And the string's going to be longer than it has to be. Usually you can trim a little bit off. Be careful with that. If you have your old strings and straighten them out, and you can measure it out that way. If you're not sure, if you're used to your bass, you know how much you can get away with trimming off. I'm going to actually, for the demonstration, not even trim any, because I'm going to see what this actually does on the bridge, what I'm going to try out. And probably, if it doesn't seem to make any difference, take it off and string it through body. So okay, I'll put the tip at the end of the string. We have this slot here on the tuning peg, and inside there's a hole. Stick it straight down in the hole, then bend it down, and start wrapping around. Make sure you wrap around the right direction. And this is more string than I want to wrap around. So 2.5 to 3 coils is good, and it should go downwards. Right now I can do it by hand because there's a lot of string. And what happens is when I'm doing this, I'm twisting the string. So just to demonstrate, what I'll do is push the string out back, and you see it just spun around. I don't know if you saw it, but there was a lot of twist in there. I found a video saying that's what causes the low strings not to ring out as nicely. So as I'm tightening, I'm going to push it out and let the tension unravel, and that's going to be supposedly a big help. And I really saw it on this. So I'm going to start over because I have way too much excess string here. Straighten out my string and cut a bit off. And, okay, tools you're going to need are wire cutters, of course, and string winder is going to make life easier. So I have a way of measuring. Usually I'll think like where the tuning peg is. I'll think about 2 more of those, that kind of distance usually does the job. When you're cutting it, better to be on the safe side and cut it longer than shorter. Alright, so again, I'm going to just kind of straighten this out. Stick it straight down in the hole and start wrapping around. For the E string, I'm going to wrap around clockwise. And I can usually do 2 by hand this way really easily without having to mess with turning the string winder. Now I'm going to do that little thing where I push it out the bridge and let it unspin. And what I'm going to do is instead, I'm going to pull tension with my finger here, and my index finger is going to hold down, and my other fingers, it's hard to see at this angle, are pulling up on the string. But I'm going to try to leave the ball end sticking past the hole so the string's can rotate. Now I'm going to start winding it. And keeping the fingertip here helps to make the coil go nice and smooth downwards. So I really don't want it to overlap. You can kind of even pry it up. I've got a lot more string than normally I would put, but this should be okay. I just want to avoid overlapping. That's the main thing. That causes the stability of the tuning to not be so great. And since there's a lot, I got to kind of pull it the coil so to make room for it. And then I'm going to check on that string if it's spinning. Which, yeah. So I think that will help on the sustain and just the way that the low string rings out. On a 5-string bass, this is definitely worth checking out. It's a little tricky though with the body, when the strings go through the body. I don't know how really to get around that. So I'll get it up to tension. Don't worry about getting it totally in sync, just enough so it's on there good. Double check on your bridge that the string is properly in the saddle. If it's not, don't try to force the string out, loosen it up and then move it because you're going to pinch the string that way. And that's what I'll do for the low string. Now I'll actually do one more. I'll do my, I'm actually going to do the G string. This is kind of a mess because there's 8 strings, so it's color coded. So I'll just double check. I'm not putting on a guitar the octave strings. So my G should be green, and it's easy to tell because there's 2 greens, and one's very thin, one's a lot thicker, like a bass string. This one I'm actually going to go through body because, like I said, it supposedly gets a lot better sustain this way. And I have noticed that actually. Pull it all the way through, make sure that ball is all the way up tight. Later you're going to double check that anyways. And again, it's a little bit longer than it has to be. Not a whole lot. These actually, especially this has a long scale on this particular bass. On most basses you're going to find the strings quite a bit longer than it has to be. This one I don't have to cut very much off at all. About right. Now if it's 4 and 4 like this one is, or 8 and 8 on 8-string bass, not 4 in a row on one side, you want to make sure on this side, on like the G and the D strings, you're winding it counterclockwise. And again, stick the tip in. Yeah, it's clockwise. What am I saying? So clockwise for this, counterclockwise for this side. And if you find like it looks like it's going to be too long, like this weight, I measured it bad. A little tired today. Just undo it, and you're going to cut off the part that's bent anyway, so that's no big deal. So I'm going to trim a little bit more off. Double check I'm not going crazy with it. Just trimmed about another like inch and a half off. And again, be careful with cutting the strings because if you overdo it, you're kind of SOL. And yeah, as much as you can do by hand, it saves a lot of work on turning the tuning keys. In this case, I have a string winder, just this angle's kind of awkward. It's another thing, depending on how used they are, I tend to save my old bass strings, unless you're rich and you can buy new strings all the time. The more strings you get, the more expensive they get, of course. As far as from 4-string to 5, 6, or 8. Helpful little trick too if you're ran out of strings or you're trying to just get the most out of your strings is on older strings that are not totally worn, where you see flat marks on them from wearing against the frets, but where it's just kind of, they start to sound dead. A quick fix is to boil them. Like a minute. Just get water boiling hot and coil them up and throw them in a pan for a minute, minute and a half tops, and then shake them out and dry them off right away. That freeze out a lot of the dirt, and you'll get a nice new sound. It doesn't last very long, but it's better than that dead string sound. You can do it for desperate times, basically. I do notice the strings tend to break a lot easier after that, which makes sense. Probably something about the way the metal's being tempered. But that is a very helpful little trick, actually. And I got it in the wrong groove of the nut. So there, make sure it's always in, the right. This is a little trickier because it's 8-string. So I want to make sure that it's in the right spot on the nut, and I'll get in the check on the saddle before you tighten it. And now I'm just going to get it not all the way into. I'm just going to get it up to tension so it's not loose. And that's it for this. All the other strings are going to work the same. Of course, the other 4 on an 8-string bass are like guitar strings, so I'll use the same method I use on a guitar for those. And that's it.